is
1:01 p.m.
Tune in to Nationwide 90 FM on Tuesday, May 20 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for the live sectoral presentation by the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, the Honourable Darrell Vaz. Also, you can view the presentation on our YouTube channel at Nationwide 90 FM Live 2. So tune in to Nationwide 90 FM on Tuesday, May 20 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's the live sectoral presentation by the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, the Honourable Darrell Vaz. All this and more only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, fueling growth everywhere.
Big news! The Big Bite Food Safety Show now airs on Nationwide 90 FM with your host, Alison Richards, the Food Safety Girl. Join Alison every Tuesday from 1 to 2 p.m. as she serves up expert advice, tips, and insights on everything food safety. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, food safety is everybody's business. Don't miss a bite of the action. Tuesdays at 1 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Tune in for the salty truth on the next episode. Welcome to the Big Bite Food Safety Show, your go-to source for everything you need to know about food safety. I'm Alison, your food safety girl and host. Today, May 20, we're talking about salt. It's in every pot, every kitchen, and almost every bite. It's a part of our culture, our history, from preserving meat during slavery to our beloved salt fish and mackerel. But today, too much salt is quietly hurting us. Today, in observation of Salt Awareness Week, which was observed last week, we're going to be exploring the salty truth. So, stay tuned. We'll be joined later in studio by Rosanna Pike, Advocacy Officer for Global Health Advocacy Project at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. The title of today's show is The Salty Truth, Culture, Health and Balance. Now remember to send your questions you may have to our WhatsApp line here at Nationwide at 876-280-6629. And of course, we'll get those questions answered. Now, as customary, we're going to be sharing a video with you today. And this video is going to be talking about how salt is made. You know, we consume salt is in pretty much every commodity that we consume. And, you know, how is it made? Let's take a look at that video.
The making of salt. Brine is the natural source of common salt. The ocean, salt lakes, and some underground water are brine. Let's trace their journey from the sea to a sachet. Shallow concentrating ponds are artificially created. Brine is pumped into them. Water evaporates in the heat of the sun. Intermittent airing hastens evaporation. In a week's time, salt crystals are left behind. Now, harvesting begins. The crystals are raked and transported to factories. The fresh crystals dry out on a conveyor belt and are broken into smaller bits by a crusher. Jets of water splash onto them and the dirt is washed away. Washed salt is called slurry. Slurry dries out in a centrifugal drum. The salt crystals are whisked away for further treatment. A screw mixer folds a measured amount of iodine into the salt crystals, and the crystals chug along on conveyor belts to dry out again. The vibratory belt sorts the crystals into sizes. Other chemicals are added to prevent salt from sticking or getting soggy. Salt is then measured and packed. Let's quickly look at the process once again.
So there we have some information on how salt is made. And as you can see, it's a pretty lengthy process, as you can imagine. And, that salt, that one load of salt that is produced, is pretty much travels almost halfway around the world, and it is what we eventually consume. And of course, with any food commodity in terms of manufacturing, food safety is always at the forefront of these manufacturers, well, hopefully. And once it's an ingredient in any food item that we eat, we also want to make sure, that it's manufactured in accordance to good manufacturing practices. Now, my question for you today, having watched that video, did anything surprise you about the process of salt production, especially what ends up in the salt we eat? I'm inviting you to head on over to our live YouTube stream at Nationwide 90FM Live 2. That's where we're going to be chatting it up today, just to get your insight on this very important topic. Again, the title for today's show is The Salty Truth: Culture, Health, and Balance. Now, what would a food safety show be without food safety news? Our first news item for today is a meat recall alert. Over 18,000 pounds of sausage and sliced meat products are being pulled from shelves by Smith Packing LLC due to excess sodium nitrite. Now, sodium nitrite is a chemical preservative that in high amounts can pose serious health risks. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says the recalled products include popular items like beef sausage, bologna, Frank's, bratwurst, and chicken sausage sold on the brands like Asalam, Smith Packing, and Honest John. They were distributed across New York between February and April 2025. Now, why is this important? Excess sodium nitrite can cause nausea, dizziness, and more serious effects, especially in sensitive individuals. While no illnesses have been reported yet, some consumers notice an off taste and color, prompting the recall. Now, the codes for these affected products are EST 4578 or P4578 on the USDA inspection mark. So, of course, if you are a consumer of these products, you want to head on over to your fridge or your freezer, check it out. If it's there, do not eat them, throw them out, or return them. And I think this is a pretty important topic, or news item rather, because you do know that our processed meats here in Jamaica, like our frankfurters or bologna that are made locally, sodium nitrite is actually a pretty important ingredient that's used for curing these meats. So, that's something that, makes you think, or how important it is rather for our local manufacturers to pay attention to these levels that are in these processed meats. Now, our second news item for today is an allergy alert. A popular product labeled as non-dairy has been recalled after it was found to contain undeclared milk, a major allergen. Now, Mocha Premium Non-Dairy Creamer, imported by Momo Tea Incorporated, is being pulled from shelves in the US because it contains milk-derived ingredients like whey powder and casein that were not listed on the label. That makes it extremely dangerous for people with milk allergies. The recall is classified as Class 1, the most serious kind, meaning it poses a high risk of severe allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis, which can be life-threatening. The affected product, it comes in a 2.2 pound or 1 kg bag, and there is no batch code. Now, all the product on the market is affected. So if you do have these in your possession, you are being encouraged to, check your pantry, check your labels, and ensure that you don't have them in your possession. Now, while the creamer is officially distributed in parts of the US, imported products like these can often end up in our local markets. You want to keep an eye out on this. And of course, if you have an allergy to milk, you want to make sure that you do not use this product. Our third news item for today is that there is a recall on a popular sweet treat in Canada. The Poppies brand mini eclairs have been recalled after routine testing found possible E. coli contamination. The recall was issued following test results from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. The affected product is sold in a 455-gram package with UPC 008563 954501 and a best before date of 2026 AL03. While the recall was issued in British Columbia and Ontario, it's possible the product could have reached other provinces and possibly overseas market as well, including our Caribbean importers or our specialty grocers. Now, why is this recall important? E. coli infections can be serious, especially in young children, the elderly, and people with weakened immune systems. Symptoms often include severe stomach cramps, bloody diarrhea, and fever. In rare cases, infections can lead to kidney failure and other life-threatening complications. Now, what can you do? Of course, you're going to be checking your freezer. And of course, if you have this product, do not eat it, throw it away, or return it to where you bought it. And even if it looks or smells fine, E. coli has a way of tricking us. It can still be dangerous. Our fourth news item for today is that the Clarendon Health Department, local news by the way, is making World Food Safety Day with a community-driven 5K run or walk on Saturday, June 7, 2025. We have a flyer up on screen over at our YouTube live stream. Head on over to look at it. The event begins at 5:30 a.m. at the Clarendon Health Department on Georges Street in Denbigh and ends at Bargain Village Plaza on Main Street, May Pen. Now, this initiative is a part of the global call to action under this year's theme, Food Safety Science in Action. And of course, World Food Safety Day is an important day for the food safety girl, you can imagine. Registration is now open, children. It costs $500, adults $1,200. In groups of more, there is a discount. Now, as a food safety girl, I'm going to be supporting this cause, and it's my invitation to you guys to also run on out, head to Clarendon if you're close by, and even if you're a bit far, you can make it a group event, and head out to support the cause for World Food Safety Day 2025. And the theme again is Food Safety Science in Action. Now, our fifth news item is that a new report by Healthy Babies Bright Futures has found dangerously high levels of arsenic and cadmium in rice samples from over 100 brands sold in the US. These heavy metals are linked to serious health effects, including developmental delays, cancer, and heart disease, especially in babies and young children. 1 in 4 rice samples exceeded the US FDA's arsenic limit for infant rice cereal, while infant cereals have improved everyday rice, often served at every meal, remains a major source of toxic exposure. Now, this is especially concerning for Jamaica, where rice is clearly a dietary staple and largely imported from countries flagged in the report, including the US, India, Thailand. With limited local testing and labeling, consumers are often unaware of what they're really eating because, our cook shop, half or maybe 80% of our boxes is literally rice, so this is something that came and, it was very alarming to me when I saw the report that, it's a very good opportunity, I think, because, back in the day we used to have the pound out sugar the pound out flour. Now, you're seeing a decrease in that trend, especially as a sugar, because, the government stepped in and now, no, you have to have properly repackaged sugar. And at the time, I kind of wondered, what's happening for the rice and the flour. And I think this would be a good time, for us to revisit that discussion, have some form of traceability in our product labeling, best before dates, to kind of regulate the imported rice that we have here. Now, of course, some tips on how to reduce the heavy metals in your rice include washing it, draining it, and cooking it and draining that excess water to remove some of the arsenic, and soaking it overnight also for safety. Now, before we get into our last news item for today, we're going to go for a quick break. Stay tuned to the Big Bite Food Safety Show.
Spring into style with Unique Living. Upgrade your home with our extensive range of products. Get sleek shower panels, stylish vanities, LED and non-LED mirrors, plus kitchen sinks, closet solutions, ceiling fans, and more. Available in various finishes and sizes. Visit shop number 6, 30 Dunrobin Avenue, Kingston 10. Call 876-755-3661 or visit our website at www.uniquelivingja.com. Don't wait to spring into style with Unique Living.
Lace up and get ready for a run to remember through the lush True Juice orchards in Buckwalk. It's the 10th annual True Juice 5K Run Walk, Sunday, June 8, 2025. Let's make this 10th anniversary bigger and better as we raise funds for the Linstead Hospital. It's going to be special with exciting surprises in store. Register now at TrueJuice5K.com. Entry fee only $3,000. Each participant will receive a free 5K t-shirt. Follow at True Juice on Instagram for more details.
The environment takes center stage this Labor Day, Friday, May 23, under the theme, The Environment, Our Land, Our Duty, Our Future. Play your part in preserving our environment. Put some voluntary labor into Labor Day in your community, anywhere across Jamaica. Jamaica Nice. Protect with Paradise.
Tune in to Nationwide 90 FM on Tuesday, May 20 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for the live sectoral presentation by the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, the Honourable Darrell Vaz. Also, you can view the presentation on our YouTube channel at Nationwide 90 FM Live 2. So tune in to Nationwide 90 FM on Tuesday, May 20 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's the live sectoral presentation by the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, the Honourable Darrell Vaz. All this and more only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, fueling growth everywhere.
Welcome back to the Big Bite Food Safety Show. Today we're talking about salt. The title of today's show is The Salty Truth, Culture, Health and Balance. Now, last week was Salt Awareness Week, and, when I learned of that, I thought, what a better time to, explore this important ingredient, because mind you, as much as we talk about the high salt consumption that we are experiencing locally in our country and its impact on non-communicable diseases that are existing amongst our our fellow nationals, salt is pretty much an important ingredient that we really need in terms of assisting us. Sodium in itself is critical for the functioning of our nervous system, so it was pretty important, and that I thought it's pretty important that we needed to discuss this today. But before we get into the meat of the matter, let's just wrap up our news segment today with our final news item. Wells Enterprises has recalled over 16,000 gallons of ice cream and frozen yogurt in the U.S. due to plastic contamination. The recall affects multiple 3-gallon tubs from brands like Country Rich, Glenview Farms, and Wells' own Blue Bunny line, sold through food service distributors like Cisco and U.S. Foods. Though no injuries have been reported, plastic in food can cause choking, cuts to the mouth, or intestinal harm, especially dangerous for children who are usually the target audience for ice cream. Here's what hits close to home though. Jamaica imports some of these bulk service ice cream products. I can't speak to the specific brands that I've mentioned, but because we do import bulk ice cream, it's something to consider. Look through the pantry or the food storage section of your restaurant or your hotel or your catering company, just to make sure that we have none of these products in our possession. So, if you've had a vanilla or Rocky Road recently from a food service establishment, especially if it tasted off or had a strange texture, it may be worth raising the issue. Now, of course, you're encouraged not to eat these products, but to discard them or return them if possible. And of course, just a reminder, as consumers, when we're eating out, do not be afraid to ask questions. Now, getting into today's main topic, it's all about salt. It's an important, and I mean important not because it adds flavors to our food, but salt has held such a significant station in our history as it relates to slavery. Back in that time before we had, access to refrigeration, our meats that our ancestors would have to prepare, it was really one of those commodities that would have allowed them to keep the food longer, extend the shelf life. It was used for preservation, basically, preserving it, digging a hole, putting it underground, ensuring that our ancestors could have access to a steady supply of meat. And of course, that is where our saltfish come from. That's one of our main commodities that we always look forward to, and it's paired beautifully with our national fruit, the ackee. And of course, it has become an entrenched staple. We're using it in our fritters and, just cooking it up with our broad beans. So we also have the pigtail, which is a thing, because I don't eat stew peas without pigtail. And my guest for today, Rosanna Pike, from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, in particular, the Global Health Advocacy Project, is with me here in studio today. And of course, she's going to be taking us through, this whole, the plea. I'm going to call it a plea because, the statistics are there. 30% of Jamaicans are, suffering from non-communicable diseases. And this is a wake-up call. We always hear people arguing and them say, them go to the hospital and there's no adequate health care. And I think it's so much easier to blame the government for not providing the healthcare services. But then what are you doing to prevent yourselves from not being able to access this healthcare? So welcome, Rosanna. It's very good to have you in studio today.
Thank you, Alison, for inviting me, and for me to represent the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. It's always a pleasure to be as part of the movement in educating the public.
Yes, and I was went going through the Observer last week, and I was looking through the paper and realized that it was Salt Awareness Week, and I kind of felt bad because I'm like, girl, you're a food safety girl. How do you not know this? But I kind of know everything.
Right,
there are a lot of days. There are a lot of days. So, when I learned, I thought this would have been a good, opportunity to just have the dialogue, because I love to talk with other persons, because there's always that perspective that, for food safety, we focus on the handling. We don't really think about any other aspect. And I can't think about food safety with salt. The extraneous matter and something black not supposed to be in the salt. But outside of that, there is the issue that we're facing in the country. And it would be very remiss of me to just pretend like, it's not my thing to talk about. It is important. And I think the collaborative nature of different stakeholders, myself, the Heart Foundation, to meet and to have these discussions are so important for persons to, to understand. So before we waste any more time, I already mentioned why our bodies need salt, what role it plays in maintaining a good health. But just share a little with us on that topic.
All right, sure. And this is really a good time to kind of educate the public, to break down what salt really is. So salt, as we know, it's a crystal-like compound and it's made up of two elements, so sodium and chloride. So most time when we're talking about the detrimental effects, or both positive and detrimental effects of salt, we're really referring to the sodium, which is an essential nutrient. It's a mineral contained in salt. And I assume you might have mentioned earlier to our listeners and our viewers online that sodium it plays a critical role in, electrical impulses for your nervous system, the sodium-potassium pump, muscle contraction, all of those. And it also maintains that fluid balance in your body. So when your cells need to remain in an isotonic state, meaning there's an equal amount of, salt versus fluid,
water,
right?
yeah.
So it's not too dehydrated and there's not too much fluid in it. It plays a critical role in all of those.
And I want you to stop pause just for a minute, because news commentator J.A., my lovely listener, very supportive. Every day he or she comes online, the question is always, Alison, what I must eat today? She's convinced that I'm the person sent to convince her not to eat anything. And I always reinforce with her that it's not about not eating it, it's just how you consume it. I just want you to be more mindful. And here Rosanna is sharing that salt, yes, we're over consuming salt, but it does play critical. There's a good thing to eat in salt. So in Jamaica, we say too much of one thing good for nothing. This is a perfect case of it. So you need salt.
Is key.
That is it. So, okay, Miss or Mr. News Commentator J.A. All right, so yes, Rosanna, so you talked about the different components, the element and the chemical part of it. And you mentioned the importance of it for a nervous system or what you call it, or muscular system.
Right.
And I also touched before you came on that deep cultural practice of salting, curing meats. That was really where the use of salt came from in our traditional dishes today, and that is how it has shaped our future. Now, given the importance of salt, when would you say salt became a health concern, and what makes high intake so dangerous?
All right, so let me answer what makes high intake so dangerous first, because that's probably easier to tackle. So diets higher in salt consumption are, highly associated with, of course, the increased risk of high blood pressure or hypertension.
Yeah.
And what happens is that further raises your risk of the heart diseases, right? So heart attack, heart failure, kidney disease, blindness, all of those. Wow. And we also have to remember, so when we were looking at the functions of salt earlier, so when we look at that fluid balance, excessive salt consumption, then it throws off that fluid balance. So you find that your body is retaining more fluid. And then you have to get those, what they call the water pills.
Yes.
So exactly. So remember, water follows salt. So you find that your cells are swelling. So that is one as well. And it raises the blood volume. So you find that your heart and your blood vessels are, it puts a strain on them to pump blood throughout the body to
and
your
they become
organs.
overworked, and the muscles become less elastic, and that's where the heart, all those problems come in.
So one thing leads to another, and you find that you have to be, shelling money on medical bills, prescription, all of that. So yeah,
it's good to just do what is recommended. And I know some persons, I know we'll get down into it, but before we get to that, what is the connection between salt and non-communicable diseases? I know we spoke about the need for your body to balance out that concentration of salt. We touched a bit on but what are non-communicable diseases? Because I know I take it for granted that I'm using the term and persons may understand, but just share with us a bit. What is the connection between salt and some of these non-communicable diseases?
All right, sure. So non-communicable diseases for persons who still aren't aware, fully understand. So basically, these are diseases that are not contagious, so they can't be passed from one person to another. So the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the heart disease, the cancers, etc. Right? And what the statistics are showing, as you said earlier, 1 in 3 Jamaicans 15 years and older are living with hypertension. And then it's highly attributed to unhealthy eating practices, of course, the excessive salt consumption. And then what is of greater concern is that 1 in 4 persons don't even know. They aren't aware that they're living with a condition. And then for kids, a 2018 report by the Ministry of Health and Wellness found that about 30,000 children between 10 to 18 years, these are school-age children, were diagnosed as being hypertensive, right? And, what I would say now is that there is a study that is ongoing by Dr. Trevor Ferguson that is looking at salt consumption, knowledge, attitudes, and practices amongst Jamaicans. It's not finalized as yet, but once that is done, and I'm pretty sure that study will help to corroborate the statistics that we have currently about, the prevalence of hypertension in Jamaicans, to kind of give us that total picture to say how Jamaicans are really consuming salt and what are they really aware. And then it will also probably help to answer that question I forgot to answer earlier, that when did it really become a concern. And off the top of my head I can say when did this become a concern is really when we started, there was that preponderant shift in our diets because we're not eating as our forefathers used to.
Oh no!
But not dig yam again and eat and all that. It's all about convenience.
The
But we
proliferation.
we have to acknowledge. Sometimes it's hard to go to work 9 to 5, come home in traffic to go home and prepare a nutritious, wholesome meal for ourselves and our families.
All right, so hold that thought. We're gonna go for a quick break. Stay tuned to the Big Bite Food Safety Show.
At the Jamaica Customs Agency, we care for our employees, customers, stakeholders, citizens, and our country. Customs cares. The temperature by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
31 degrees Celsius in Kingston and 29 degrees Celsius out there in Montego Bay.
The environment takes center stage this Labor Day, Friday, May 23, under the theme, The Environment. Our land, our duty, our future. Play your part in preserving our environment. Put some voluntary labor into Labor Day in your community, anywhere across Jamaica. Jamaica Nice. Protect with paradise.
Fairview Medical and Dental and Fairview Beachside Medical, the leading health centers, operate 24/7 with round-the-clock ambulance, emergency, and inpatient services, with specialties in areas like primary health care, pediatrics, cardiology, maternity OBGYN, podiatry, chiropractic care, and orthopedics. They're ready to tackle your illnesses. Visit Suite Number 5, Fairview Office Park, Alice Eldemire Drive, Montego Bay. Telephone 876-979-8589. And Fairview Beachside Medical, Unit Number 14, Sunshine Village, West End Road, Negril, Westmoreland. Telephone 876-536-1199.
Tune in to Nationwide 90 FM on Tuesday, May 20 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for the live sectoral presentation by the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, the Honorable Darrell Vaz. Also, you can view the presentation on our YouTube channel at Nationwide 90 FM Live 2. So tune in to Nationwide 90 FM on Tuesday, May 20 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's the live sectoral presentation by the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, the Honorable Darrell Vaz. All this and more only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, fueling growth everywhere.
Welcome back to the Big Bite Food Safety Show. My name is Alison Richards, your food safety girl and host. And today we're talking about salt. The title of today's show is The Salty Truth, Culture, Health and Balance. And in studio with me today is Miss Rosanna Pike, who is a Global Health Advocacy Officer with the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. And today she's spilling all the details on salt consumption and how is it that we are over consuming as a country and nation. And we're just having that dialogue. And my hope for today is that we're reinforcing that salt is a critical ingredient. We need it for our survival. However, it is the dose in which we're consuming salt is the concern, and it is resulting in the proliferation and the increase of non-communicable diseases. And that's what we're talking about. Before the break, Rosanna made a very important point. She said that nobody is planting yam. Nobody is farming, and in our corner shops and our fast food restaurants, it is something that is because You go to a restaurant these days and you ask for a piece of yam, them look by you mad. Like, them tell us, first of all, if you don't pay for the yam, you can't get the yam.
Or
So,
even if you ask for the vegetable, like, no, we realize we replace vegetable with pasta. Pasta
Yes.
is not vegetable.
and it's the
Or even if-
essence of vegetable
right?
too.
Or even if you ask for it, it's like...
Yeah, it's a
that's
little,
skimp.
yeah, it's veg, not even vegetable,
Double, right?
you know? So that is a concern. And we talked about the convenience, but do you think Jamaicans are aware of how much salt they actually consume daily? And where is it really coming from? Do you think they consider, stuff like that?
It's a sticky, or I can say a salty situation.
Right.
Really and truly, right? So, because I mean, out there when we're doing our outreach and our public education campaigns, because we like to go out and set up, so we have like our sugar display as well as our salt display. And when you go out there and you're educating people, like they see the display with some nuggets and fries and the salt shaker that shows how much is in a serving of each food. And they're like, wait, what? This is what I'm eating? So, I mean, there are some people who will take the time to do the research, practice to read food labels, etc. But then there are some who really do not know, right?
And someone told us it's like,
exactly.
since I've started food safety advocacy, I've had persons literally comment. I have persons unfollow me. Them say them can everything me come every day me come with something different, and them don't know why me take this up on my head, and them used to do it, and them this
But
person
you're
do it.
preaching gospel. You're
No,
helping them.
Well, I mean, just like the real gospel, there are persons who are just non-believers, and
right? And I
they
mean, you
just
can't
keep it
force
moving.
them,
Right. That is the beauty about will.
Right. And then even in our sorry to interject, but to educate them, like, I mean, showing them, like, comparing the salt shake and saying, hey, all of this serving, has about, say, half teaspoon of salt. Would you, looking at this, would you actually pour half teaspoon of salt and actually eat it, right? And they say no. I'm like, well, that's what you're eating. And then that's just one meal for the entire day. So imagine you eat it other, say 2-3 meals for the day, right? And then we use the opportunity now to educate them on how much they should be eating based on, the age, stage of life, and if they're living with hypertension per se.
Okay. We spoke about non-communicable diseases. These are things you cannot get from persons. There are persons out there who feel like, it's something that run in their family. They're predisposed to it. What do you have to say on that?
All right. So yes. So NCDs, yes, it is a known fact that if there are persons in your family that are, that have been diagnosed with it, then yes, there is a likelihood that you may be diagnosed. And that's when we encourage you to always get screened so you know where you stand. And of course, take preventative actions or measures to actually curb or lessen your likelihood of being, hypertensive. But you're right. So, and on the other hand, of course, it's all as we said, lifestyle modification.
Yeah.
So it's not just the hereditary alone, and of course, gender as well. So, you'll find that one gender is more predisposed to being, hypertensive than another. Right. So, things like that. And if you are living, and we always realize that there's a trend as well. If you are diagnosed with one NCD, then it's likely that you will have another. So even, especially if you're living with, like, say, overweight, obesity, it is more likely for you to be diagnosed with hypertension.
That's a very important point. We talked about people not being aware of how much salt they're consuming daily. What is their daily intake recommendation that you have for us?
Yes, so there is. So for a healthy teen, well, let's say from children 7 to 10 years, so it's 1 teaspoon
per day. Wow.
1 teaspoon of salt.
That is a little bit that,
one teaspoon of salt. And also for adults, 1 teaspoon of salt, or if you want it in sodium, it's 2,000 milligrams. We use the American Heart Association's guidelines, right? So 2,000 milligrams sodium or 1 teaspoon of salt. If you are a person living with hypertension or high blood pressure, half teaspoon of salt or 1,000 milligrams sodium.
Boy, I know quite a few people with hypertension, and I feel like them eat more salty food than me.
Exactly, because sometimes they just can't escape the taste. I mean, we have a co-worker who talk about like her grandma. She's like, she had hypertension. She would sneak out, go over the neighbor and like, you have any little salty crackers?
Wow.
Right.
I think probably there might be some studies out there that shows that, I don't know if it's an affinity, because I do know the fact that we use salt is really because it adds that flavor to food. So, it's worth looking into.
And I mean, that's a good point. Really and truly, there is an affinity, because if I really look at it, the 3 things that make food taste good, when excessively
things are not
consuming
good
good
for
for you.
you.
The fat, sugar, and the salt.
Yeah.
They make food taste good, but at the same time, if you
Fried
eat too
food, salt
much
food, sweet food,
foods,
yeah.
all right. But if you eat too much of them,
Yeah, you have that issue, which brings us back to striking the balance,
Right.
moderation. My next question to you, you mentioned convenience, and I think that is what really gets us. People, 9 to 5, people on the go, you're commuting, we have fast foods, we have these processed foods becoming so common.
Right.
What are some of the biggest hidden sources of sodium in our diets?
all right, it's another one. So a lot of persons don't know that more than 70% of the salt that we eat comes from pre-packaged, ultra-processed foods and basically foods outside of the home, not prepared in your home. So the pre-packaged
Wow.
foods and restaurant foods, right? So 70% of it, because you only get like 15% from, naturally occurring foods, and then the remainder is what you are doing cooking. So some common culprits, so those deli meats, so the deli ham, turkey meats.
I love myself
them-
some ham,
Right.
Lord.
So, well, now you know hidden salt right there.
Yeah.
Your pizzas when it comes to fast food, processed cheese, your packaged snacks. So the cheese snacks,
The
salted
Doritos
chips,
and
the pretzels, the salty crackers, all of those breads and rolls. They also have salt.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, because
Right.
I imagine bread without salt probably don't taste so good, but
Right.
yeah.
So breads and rolls, they also have salt. Soups, so those packet soups and soup convenience, soups, and of course, your processed like meats. It's like your chicken nuggets. They also have salt.
Wow.
Right. I'm trying to think. Oh, your canned foods, of course. I mean, when you
Because
go back to
it's literally
preservation,
processed in brine,
right?
yeah.
So they have salt as well. So that's why we encourage persons to read food labels when it comes to that.
Yeah, you really have to read your food labels. Now, we talk about, the impact and the risk that we expose ourselves to when consuming, so much salt.
Right.
What are some simple, practical steps that my listeners today can take home to reduce their salt intake without sacrificing flavor?
Easy peasy. From a nutritionist standpoint, I always like to tell persons, do not overthink it, don't get too technical. Go back to our roots. God gave us an abundance of vegetation, so your onion, your garlic, your scallion, your thyme, ginger, maximize on those, right? Without, using the salt. If it's a case that you want to use your powdered seasoning, look for those that say no salt added. If it's a case that you cannot afford that one or you're not finding those, if you choose to use the ones that have salt added, do not add the salt when you're preparing. If you use the salt, then don't use the powdered seasoning, right? When it comes to your canned foods when you're preparing, pour them out in a sieve or a strainer, run it under the pipe to rinse off all of that,
excess
right?
salt.
And then you're good
That's a
to
very
go.
good idea.
Right, so that is good to go. You don't have to throw it out and everything. Use your citrus, so your lime or your lemon when it comes to when you're making a vegetable salad. So you don't have to go for the regular condiments or the salad dressings. You use those to squeeze some lime juice, lemon juice on it, and it gives you that flavor.
And
So
not only your salad, because I've had like seafood or
Right,
chicken
right.
actually with lemon. And it
and
adds
it brings
a
out
pretty decent
right.
flavor,
It brings
yeah.
out it brings out a different flavor, and your palate will actually get accustomed to it. Right. And of course, we said before, read your food labels. Just know how to turn your hand make fashion, and you'll be good to go. And yeah.
Something you said, I wanted to underscore because, I used to be one of those persons where, you say you're going on a diet and you just cold turkey, you just throw out all of the salt and you don't want to see any salt, and then you
Right.
but remember, we need the salt. It's just the intake amount.
Right.
And, even if you feel like you're still consuming too much salt, I think it's very important to just take it a step at a time. Don't be too
exactly.
drastic and you stop eat
You
KFC and you
gradually
stop
cut
eat
the-
this and you stop. Yeah, brilliant. Gradually, if you eat a
Right.
3 piece of chicken, you just
Or if you
one
used to have a
piece.
specific snack every day for the week, Mr. All right, instead of 5 days,
Treat yourself to it.
Right,
Yeah.
cut until you get accustomed.
So we're not telling you not to eat anything. We're just be mindful, reduce your intake. It's all levels to it. You take your time, and as Rosanna said, your palate eventually adjusts to it.
Right.
Because I remember, Rosanna, tell him if that is okay.
I would have to see the label. How much grams of sodium in there?
You hear that? Is the
Let me give
expert
you
you're talking to,
All right. How much servings in the packet? Look up
Oh,
the top.
that is the next thing
I'm
now,
teaching your food relabeling. How much is it? How much servings in the packet? 2 are
What?
3 servings. All right, so you know what that means? It's 3 servings in the entire packet.
So
all
one
the
third
numbers
of that weight.
multiply everything there by 3. So sodium, what's the figure for sodium?
That is
So if it
75
says
grams.
so 75 grams, multiply 75 by 3. That's for the entire packet, right?
So it's gonna be 75 grams.
75.
Yeah, in total, if you eat the entire packet.
Right. No, man, it's 75 for 1 serving. No, but if it says 3
No, man,
servings.
you said 25. It's
Oh, 25. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's 75 in the entire pack. And how much percent? What's a rule of thumb, an easier way? If it's 5, when it comes to fat, salt, and sugar, 5% or less is low, which is good for those. If it goes over that, so you must be mindful. You want the bigger percentages for like the protein, the vitamins, the fiber, all of that.
So what about the salt? Is there a percentage figure for the
For
salt?
salt? How much percent? 5%?
1%. So that's
so that's
good.
Good to go.
All right. So we have some happy consumers, relieved consumers over there with their nuts.
Oh.
Oh, so this is the product we're talking about. Your fruit and nuts, and we have our label. I don't know if we can get some zoom action. So we have usually our nutrition facts panel is there, and it outlines, the number of servings, how much calories per serving, and then it does a breakdown of the salt, your protein, all your little the elements that would be
Right.
there. And see, you have it right there.
So
and
just remember.
nice.
So
zoom
what I
in
want
there.
persons to just remember
Sure.
that, just first things first, just look how much servings per container.
Yes,
So
and that
just-
is something so important, because it's the other day I share like a whole bottle. So I mean, somebody could easily, they may look like him could have easily mash up the pack of peanut here.
right? And that probably hold as I said, 3 servings. So that's, yeah.
So yeah, you have to be mindful of those things. So there you have it, guys. It's so important to make sure that you pay attention to your intake. Are we talking about salt today? Before we continue any further, we're gonna go for a quick break. Stay tuned.
Farmore Pharmacy is a family pharmacy that provides prescriptions and a wide variety of over-the-counter medicines and medical supplies. Their friendly and knowledgeable staff are available to answer your questions concerning prescriptions and healthcare. Ask about their loyalty programs. For more information on their offerings, visit Farmore Pharmacy at 42 Main Street, Maypen, or call 876-986-2405. Farmore Pharmacy, giving you far more for less.
The environment takes center stage this Labor Day, Friday, May 23, under the theme, The Environment, Our Land, Our Duty, Our Future. Play your part in preserving our environment. Put some voluntary labor into Labor Day in your community, anywhere across Jamaica. Jamaica Nice. Protect with Paradise.
Tune in to Nationwide 90 FM on Tuesday, May 20 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for the live sectoral presentation by the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, the Honorable Darrell Vaz. Also, you can view the presentation on our YouTube channel at Nationwide 90 FM Live 2. So tune in to Nationwide 90 FM on Tuesday, May 20 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's the live sectoral presentation by the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, the Honorable Darrell Vaz. All this and more only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, fueling growth everywhere.
Welcome back to the Big Bite Food Safety Show. My name is Alison Richards, your food safety girl and host. And today in studio, I have with me Rosanna Pike from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, and we're talking about salt. Now, before we get back into the discussion, I'm keeping tabs on the live chat on our YouTube live stream. And it is news commentator JA says that those serving sizes bound to make me starve. And I laughed because that's honestly how I feel. But I think it's all about mindful eating. You know, if you say, and I think a culture of overeating is what caused all of this. Because, you know, in a little bit you grow up and your parents put this big plate of food, and if you don't eat it, you know, you get threatened. Yep. And we grow up thinking that we cannot leave food on our plate. And even as a food safety girl, and, you know, zero waste, and you don't want to waste the food, and hungry kids in Africa, and them mental trip that them carry on, you know. The culture of overeating is what makes us feel that way. And if you really practice mindful, don't put it on your plate. You're going to find that you eat it and, you know, you actually don't feel as hungry as you think you would feel. So, continuing the discussion, Rosanna.
Right.
What role do you think the government, food producers, or restaurants play in helping Jamaicans reduce their salt intake?
Right. This is the bulk of my work, and I am glad to let it come over right here, because all three groups that you called right there, they are critical stakeholders in the conversation in transforming the food and nutrition landscape for Jamaica.
Yep.
So on one hand, when the government is concerned, I mean, implementing healthy food policies that will help to transform, you know, Jamaica's food landscape will be good, and health also.
Yes.
So policies like front of package warning labels. I know some persons out there do not like to hear that term, because I mean, Heart Foundation of Jamaica with our partners have been, you know, on the forefront trying to champion the cause for that. You know, so getting nutrition facts panels, you know, standards in place for nutrition facts panels, and high in octagonal warning labels. So these are just labels put on food to say it is high in fat, high in salt, high in sugar, just to empower Jamaican consumers to make more informed choices. It won't deter them. And if it's a case that the food industry is scared that it will deter consumers, then there is another solution: reformulation. We have to give props to some of our food and beverage manufacturers who have taken necessary steps to do that, right? Yeah. So you have the original version of our product, but then there's the low salt, the low fat, or the low sodium, or the no salt, you know.
So give that person the option
to
and
choose.
Something I find to that, it's on our way, but I find that Jamaicans don't like to read.
Exactly.
So it's like they're allergic to reading. And somebody say, I'm not going to call them name because I don't want to blast them. Them say they don't have no time to sit down and read the nutritional facts labels. And that is why the front of package label is important, because once you see that sign, it's like, hey,
I know that, it's high in this, so I can make my decision from there. Also, where the food industry and government and other nutrition policies include the National School Nutrition Policy.
Yes, that's a hot topic right now.
Right. So, it was approved as a green paper, and then it was tabled in the Senate by Honorable Dana Morris Dixon, the Minister of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. So we're just waiting for it to be finalized, tabled in Parliament, and then approved as an official policy, hopefully for the new school year starting September.
That would be so good.
So we're imploring our government, if you do care about the future of Jamaica and protecting our children's health, right? If we can curb the level of NCDs from that level, please speedily implement the policy, because our children deserve the best. This is where they spend most of our days, at school. Some of them really rely on school to provide them for breakfast, lunch, especially in dinner, especially our most vulnerable population. So if we can get that to also shift or transform the school food environment, then that will do us many wonders.
I think that is an excellent message. And I think, we talk about our kids. The drive now is, we must plant, but if it's not starting from them, it's a learned behavior. It has to start from anything that you would want your child to grow up doing.
Then you
is
have
literally what you have to introduce them to
them from
before,
right.
Them say bend the tree from
the
young. Yeah. So my last question for you today, Rosanna, if there's one takeaway you want our listeners to remember about salt and their health, what would it be?
We spoke about it earlier. Just remember, you see that saying, pressure bust pipe? It is
true.
Literally. So please take the necessary steps to safeguard yourself from high blood pressure and all the risks that follow, right? So get screened regularly, right? So every time, if you can afford that, every time you see your medical care provider to get your blood pressure checked, all your 4 health numbers, that is good. If not, at least 3 times for the year, so you know where you stand. Because once you know those health numbers, you actually know, you have a complete picture to know if something is off with your health. And of course, shameless plug, the Heart Foundation of Jamaica is open, always open, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. to the public every day. So you can come on down and get your blood pressure checked along with a host of other screening procedures.
I like that plug because I think it's a pretty important plug.
Yes,
it's a service that is being offered. It's free.
So blood pressure checks, do not quote me, I'm sorry. I think it's within the 300 to 500 range. It's not,
that is less
it's
than
very
a box
inexpensive,
food,
right?
Yeah, so you have no excuse,
Yeah,
guys. If you
right.
don't have access to blood pressure monitoring at home, head on down and get yourselves. It's better to know than don't know, because you can't,
Right.
put a plan in place if you don't know. So that is it for our discussion today. Rosanna, thank you so much for coming in.
It was my
that
pleasure. I actually had
important
fun.
discussion. I know. And Damien and him bag of peanut round there. Look, his weight there. Him have some leaf over,
See, portion control. Good.
See?
Portion control.
Portion control. I love that for you, Damien. I help you over here, Yeah, so rounding up today, I think it's pretty important. Just a quick recap. Salt, it's important. We need it for our nervous system, our muscular system, that sodium aspect of it, giving us that energy and that pizzazz that we need to maintain our pulse. But too much is dangerous. You really don't want to. I know it's a part of our history and our culture, our pigtail, because I love pigtail, And it's something I talk about all the time. I'm passionate about it, rather. So, but we still have to be mindful, soak these salted meats before you prepare them, overnight soaking, put them in your refrigerator, because remember, the idea of introducing salt to them is just so it extends the shelf life. So it doesn't mean you have to consume them. Soak it, cook it, boil it 10 times over until you get to that level where you think it's not too much. And Rosanna, she has shared some statistics with us. Is it 1 in every
3 Jamaicans 15 years and older is living with hypertension, and 1 in 4 persons don't even know that they're living with the condition.
And the responsibility is yours. There's free health care, but you don't need healthcare if you don't get sick. And you don't get sick if you take care of yourself. So that is really the message. So you don't have to give up your culture to be healthy. And simple adjustments. Remember, don't go cold turkey. Don't throw away all of the kids' snacks. Don't freak out. Because on a regular, I get messages from people. One of my girlfriends, she's like, listen, but just stress out today. And, just the realization that she has come to. And she's like, I'm poisoning my kids. And, you have to be like, calm down.
Take it in stages.
You have to take it in stages. So, simple adjustments can preserve flavor while protecting your health, and making low sodium versions of your favorite Jamaican dishes. Get creative. As Rosanna said, take your hand, make fashion. So that is a message we're leaving with you today. And before we go, I have a fun food safety fact to share with you. Your fridge has a sweet spot. Fun fact, your fridge is colder at the back and warmer near the door. To maximize food safety, store your dairy and meat at the back where it's coldest, and keep condiments and drinks near to the door. In closing, as we've seen, salt is more than just a seasoning. It's a thread that runs through our history, culture, and cuisine. From the resilience of our ancestors to the rich flavors of our kitchens today, salt has shaped who we are as a people. But as we honor that legacy, we must also protect our future. By finding balance, enjoying our traditional dishes with a mindful approach, we preserve our culture and our health. Making small changes like reducing your hidden salt and embracing natural flavors can lead to big impacts. Thank you for staying tuned to the Big Bite Food Safety Show today, your go-to source for all things food safety. I hope today's episode has empowered you with invaluable insights. A huge thank you to the studio and production team, technical operators Damian Cunningham and Kevin Williams, my producer Tracy Lyle. Stay tuned for the sectoral debate. Let's continue the discussion via my social media accounts at The Food Safety Girl on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, You name it. Instagram, TikTok, I'm there. See you next week. Bon appetit.
Fairview Medical and Dental and Fairview Beachside Medical, the leading health centers, operate 24/7 with round-the-clock ambulance, emergency, and inpatient services. With specialties in areas like primary health care, pediatrics, cardiology, maternity OBGYN, podiatry, chiropractic care, and orthopedics. They're ready to tackle your illnesses. Visit Suite Number 5, Fairview Office Park, Alice Eldemire Drive, Montego Bay. Telephone 876-979-8589. And Fairview Beachside Medical, Unit Number 14, Sunshine Village, West End Road, Negril, Westmoreland. Telephone 876-536-1199.